Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel and NoDQ&A videos affiliate ringsidenews.com. We are just about a week away until the WWE Fastlane pay-per-view. NoDQ.com, of course, has you covered with the very latest news, rumors, and of course, live results coverage on NoDQ, as well as the Twitter account, which is unverified. We are too extreme to be verified by Twitter over at twitter.com/NoDQ.com. With that being said, let's get down to your questions today. First one comes from Ricky. Why would Finn Balor make an NXT appearance and hint at more when he was doing so well on Raw before his injury? He made the NXT appearance, I think, just to test the waters a little bit. He hasn't officially been cleared to return to action. He did do a little bit of physical actions in the ring by making the save for Shinsuke Nakamura. I think that Finn Balor will be back very soon in WWE, and he will be on the main roster. It's not like he's going to be back in NXT and then eventually he ends up back on Raw. He will be back on the main roster when he does return. At least that's what I think you're trying to ask. Will he be back on Raw, or is he going to be in NXT for a while? I see him going right back to the main roster once he's cleared. This one comes from Javier Reyes. What do you think of Finn making his return at the Raw in Barclays? It would be fitting since that's where he won the title. I would not bring him back there just because it's the place where he won the title. I would bring him back if the timing is right for him to return. Now, I believe he's getting evaluated again very soon, possibly in the next few weeks, and then the final determination will be made if he can come back in the month of March. He's already being advertised for several WWE events in March, so one would think he's a couple of weeks away from returning. The fact that he did get physical at the NXT tapings and he showed off the picture of his abs, I mean, it's pretty clear the guy is very close to being ready to return. The big question, of course, will he be back in time for WrestleMania? Will they put him in a match at WrestleMania, or will WWE hold off until after WrestleMania to reintroduce him into the storylines? And on that topic, I got a question from Answer Me Aaron Rift. This guy knows how to get his questions answered with his username. Finn Balor is returning in March. Wouldn't it be better for him to return after WrestleMania? I think he would get lost in the shuffle now. That is a valid question, because you would expect Finn Balor, when he comes back, to go right into the main event scene. I mean, after all, he was the first Universal Champion, and he should be getting his rematch right away. It's really interesting, because if he comes back before WrestleMania, by logic, you would think that he would ask for his title rematch at WrestleMania. So what does WWE do? Will they have Goldberg versus Lesnar versus Finn Balor, or will Kevin Owens somehow retain the title? And will Kevin Owens and Jericho be in a three-way with Balor? I mean, none of that really makes a whole lot of sense. I think that you go with Goldberg versus Lesnar one-on-one, and then you go with Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho one-on-one. But what do you do with Finn Balor if he's not going for the Universal title? They could do some sort of storyline where Balor is promised his title shot after WrestleMania if he does something else, like maybe do that Raw versus SmackDown match that I had suggested a few months back. Maybe have Finn Balor versus AJ Styles, or maybe they could do Finn Balor versus Samoa Joe. But how would they explain Balor not getting his title rematch at WrestleMania when he's ready to go? So it may just be easier for WWE to hold off on him until after WrestleMania, because the last thing you want to do is just have him come back and put him in a random match at WrestleMania that doesn't feel important. I guess Balor versus Joe would be a pretty big deal, but I'm not sure. I mean, it's very much a question mark at this point. What do you do with Finn Balor if he's ready to go in time for WrestleMania? Do you even put him in a match at WrestleMania, or do you wait? So I'm not really sure which is the correct way to go at this point. This one comes from Anthony Hayes. Hey Aaron, when Brock beats Goldberg at WrestleMania, who will be his next opponent? Roman Reigns? And I have a similar question here from John. Once Goldberg beats Kevin Owens and Brock beats Goldberg, who beats Brock for the belt? Does WWE push Reigns, Brock Lesnar for SummerSlam? Let's start off with the next opponent for Brock Lesnar. Now, if Brock Lesnar is the Universal Champion, going back to a few minutes ago, one would think Finn Balor would be in line for a title match. So it's really interesting to see who emerges out of WrestleMania as the champion, because I would expect Finn Balor to get his title rematch as soon as possible, and you would think that in the storyline, his character would want his shot ASAP, and ideally at WrestleMania, but I would be surprised if Balor goes for the Universal title at WrestleMania, just because WWE has those other storylines in place with Owens and Jericho and Goldberg and Brock Lesnar. But I would expect, if Brock Lesnar is the champion heading out of WrestleMania, I would expect Finn Balor to get the first crack at the title. I mean, if it's Roman Reigns, it doesn't make any sense. Finn Balor should be getting his title shot. So I would think that it would be Finn Balor versus Lesnar if Lesnar's the champion. Now, as John mentioned, the idea of doing a SummerSlam match between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, that I could see as a realistic possibility. You slowly build up Roman Reigns to challenge Brock Lesnar, although, are we really going to have another lengthy Brock Lesnar run as Universal Champion? Maybe Brock wins at WrestleMania, and then the next night on Raw, Finn Balor gets his shot and beats Brock Lesnar, and then WWE does Finn Balor versus Roman Reigns. I could also see Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns at some point. They had their match at WrestleMania 31, which was never really settled because of Seth Rollins cashing in Money in the Bank, so we haven't gotten to see a definitive winner in a Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns match. I could see that being a possibility for SummerSlam sometime down the line. So there are a lot of different ways WWE can go with this. It's really hard to say at this point which direction they ultimately will go in at WrestleMania and past WrestleMania. Got this one here from William Hardy. What should be next for Lesnar if he still loses to Goldberg at WrestleMania? That is a tough one to answer. If Lesnar loses yet again to Goldberg, I'm not sure where you go with him. That's why I would be shocked if Lesnar lost again, unless the storyline is that Goldberg is Brock Lesnar's kryptonite. But I think it would be really hard to market Lesnar if he loses yet again to Goldberg at WrestleMania. But if you do that, do you have Lesnar as a part-time champion again, or do you have Balor beat him the next night? So again, I'm really intrigued by where WWE goes. But let's just say, for argument's sake, Lesnar does in fact lose to Goldberg, then you really got to do something big with the guy to try and establish him as a threat again. I think people are going to not take Lesnar very seriously if he loses to Goldberg yet again at WrestleMania. So it would take a lot. Lesnar would need a big win over somebody. So who would you have Lesnar destroy? Would he destroy Braun Strowman? Would Strowman be fed to Lesnar? Would they just have Big Show take an F5 again? To me, that's not enough. Mark Henry taking an F5, to me, that's not enough. So I really don't know. I mean, even though it's predictable, I think Brock Lesnar needs to beat Goldberg at WrestleMania. I really don't see another way around it. The only way I could see Goldberg winning is if he's sticking around after WrestleMania, and I really don't see that happening. I think this is going to be it. I think Goldberg's had his run, and WrestleMania is going to be his last match, and he'll go off into the sunset. I'm not sure. I really don't know what WWE should do if Brock loses to Goldberg. What would you guys do? I'll ask for your feedback. What do you think about the situation if Brock Lesnar lost to Goldberg yet again? How would you book him after that to build him as a monster again? What would you do? Who would you sacrifice to Brock Lesnar? Or would you just say Brock Lesnar should step away from WWE? I still think he has another year left on his contract. So what do you do with Lesnar? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Got this one here from Ali. SmackDown Live's roster is thin, as we saw by the lack of stars in the Battle Royal. What should they do to beef it up? NXT call-ups? It is a bit thin, but at the same time, SmackDown is only a 2-hour show, and the shows have been getting rave reviews. I mean, week after week, I've been doing the polls on NoDQ.com, and SmackDown is always getting thumbs up reviews from fans. People seem to like the format SmackDown has. Yes, the roster is a bit thin, but to me, there's no filler on SmackDown, and I think if you start adding a lot of guys, then there'll be more of that urgency by WWE to throw as many people on the shows as possible, and it would become overkill with too many people on the show. I think the pacing is just fine the way it is right now. It doesn't feel like there's much filler, and it feels like most of the roster is getting regular TV time. So I actually think it's solid as it is now. Yes, it is a bit thin, but I think it would be a mistake to add a lot more people to SmackDown. I mean, what they really need is 1 or 2 marquee stars on SmackDown. So maybe you trade someone to SmackDown, or you introduce Nakamura to SmackDown. I mean, something just to give SmackDown a little bit more star power. I think that's what you're implying, that SmackDown needs a little bit more star power. Nakamura could very well be that answer. This one comes from Austin West. When can we expect Eric Bischoff in the WWE Hall of Fame, and who should induct him? Maybe Vince McMahon? Real quick, going back to that previous question while I'm thinking about it, the Revival, the tag division feels weak. The Revival, having them come in and feud with American Alpha, I think that would also beef up SmackDown a little bit. But that's it, just Nakamura and the Revival on SmackDown, and I think they'll be in good shape. Now, regarding this question about Eric Bischoff, when will he go into the Hall of Fame? It could really happen at any time. I mean, I think it's just going to come down to timing, and when WWE feels the time is right, when they need somebody in the Hall of Fame like Eric Bischoff, when they're short of a headliner, they can always count on Bischoff to be one of the headliners. No doubt Bischoff played a huge role in wrestling surging in popularity in the mid-90s. As far as who would induct Bischoff, I mean, yeah, you could do Vince, but I think it would have to be somebody from WCW, and Hogan would be the biggest name possible. I think Hogan, looking at his relationship with Bischoff all these years, both in WCW and in TNA and in various other projects, I think it's got to be Hogan. I think Hogan is your most likely choice to induct Bischoff. And once the company has brought back Hogan and Hogan's on good terms again, I think the chances will increase of Bischoff going into the Hall of Fame, because, you got to think about who will be the person to induct him. And there goes my phone. Next one comes from Joshua. What were your thoughts on Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara's first Nitro? I thought it was pretty good. I agree with you. I felt that when Russo and Ferrara first came in, the show definitely picked up the pace. It was 3 hours, and WCW had the problem with the 3-hour shows, just like Raw does now. And the Russo era brought in a faster-paced show. Before Russo came in, it felt like the 3 hours really dragged. And when Russo came in, it definitely felt like things were moving faster. And guys were getting more television time. Your mid-carders were getting more storylines, and more characters were being developed. So there were some positives, but of course we all know the big problems. Russo started doing all of the insider references that most of the audience was not understanding, and when fans get confused, they end up turning off the television. If they have no idea what's going on, then they're not invested. And then you had the other issue of standards and practices, and I don't know if that would have made a huge difference. If Russo was allowed to have the half-naked women and all the profanity, I'm not sure that would have turned WCW's fortunes around. I did feel the shows were more entertaining to watch. But at the end of the day, things did not work out with Russo and WCW, and with all the constant title changes and the swerves, just constantly swerving. I always said this, that it got to the point when the best swerve was when there was no swerve. And, guys getting injured, the production values being very poor. There were so many problems with WCW that that kept progressing week after week. But yeah, that first week was definitely a huge improvement from previous weeks in WCW. This one comes from Charlie Wong. Hey Aaron, what is your opinion on the Right to Censor faction? It made sense at the time, WWE, like I was saying with WCW and Russo, you had the people coming down on WWE for the vulgar language and not being geared towards kids and having offensive content. And WCW was also having that problem. But with WWE, they decided to do a parody. They came up with the Right to Censor to mock the Parents Television Council. I think it was a good idea. It made sense to capitalize on that and use it to get heel heat. The only thing is, I think it hurt the careers of The Godfather and Val Venus. I think both of them could have had some more mileage with their characters, and Val Venus, the porn star, and Godfather doing the Ho Train. That was very entertaining stuff, and I think it was cut short too soon. And those guys, they never really regained that momentum again once they were turned heels and became part of the RTC group. I would have rather have seen a couple of other guys that maybe had gotten stale. I mean, some would argue that Godfather and Val Venus had gotten stale, but in my opinion, I think they could have kept those gimmicks for another year or two and stayed pretty hot. I think they cooled off sooner than they needed to. But again, that's just my opinion. But overall, I would say it was a good idea, and it made sense to take advantage of what was going on behind the scenes and use it to make a great heel stable. And, they got a lot of heat, so it definitely worked. This one comes from Yaniv Lames. Psycho Sid was on fire in late 96 to half of 97. In that point, he was super popular. If he never left, how would he have fit in the Attitude Era? Sid, the problem with Sid is that he was not very reliable. There was always this talk about him leaving to play softball and not really taking his job very seriously, no showing events. And, it was hard for WWE to really put everything they had behind Sid because he could just end up no-showing and walking away and not being reliable for the company. WCW had the same problem with him. Sid would come in for a few months and then he would disappear and then he would reappear, and it was just a ongoing cycle where Sid would be around and then he wouldn't be around. So, it's really hard unless the guy is fully committed to being around 100% of the time and putting everything he had into what he's doing. It's hard to really invest in the guy. I think if Sid had been around and could do everything WWE wanted him to do, I think he would have been a pretty big factor in the Attitude Era. I mean, no doubt Sid versus Austin would have been a huge feud if they had done it when Austin had gotten really hot. I think they had a couple matches against each other, but that was before Austin was really becoming a top-level superstar. I'm not sure Sid would have been one of those top headliners. I mean, he was never known for his great in-ring skills. Austin had some great matches with Foley and even Undertaker and Kane. I'm not sure if Austin and Sid would have been able to pull off some of those really great matches that we saw from Austin during that period. So it's hard to say. Got this one here from Sean. What are your thoughts on Brian Pillman's son getting into wrestling, and what are the chances of him being in WWE? If it's something he really wants to do, something he's really passionate about, I say go for it. I definitely feel he has a better chance than David Benoit because of Benoit having that name. I think Pillman's son, if he's got the athletic ability, then he should definitely give it a shot. I mean, why not? But then again, it's a double-edged sword. If you're the son of a wrestler, you have that opportunity to get your foot in the door that other people might not have because you were born into the business in a way. But at the same time, you also have those expectations, and there's a lot of pressure put on you to perform at the level of your parent. So it could be tough. But if it's something he wants to do, I think he should definitely try it out. That'll wrap it up for this edition of No DQ&A video. Thanks as always for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please do me a favor. Go on Facebook or Twitter and share this video. Tell a friend, anybody you know who watches wrestling, you guys talk about Raw or SmackDown. Let them know, hey, I watched this show, No DQ&A video on YouTube. I enjoy it. Check it out. I think it's a good show. Anything you can do to help spread the word about No DQ&A video. I do appreciate all the support from you guys, and word of mouth can really go a long way. So thank you guys for checking out this video and showing your support. And with that being said, I will see you guys next time for more No DQ&A video.